Please welcome VP of People, Slack, Robby Kwok.
Good morning. Hello. Good morning. I kind of pressed the button too quickly, but we'll get to that in a second. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Robby Kwok, Slack's VP of People, and I'm here to share with you how to use Slack as a collaboration hub that drives a better connected and highly engaged workforce. Specifically, our goal today is to show you how HR and people teams can help connect employees to people, knowledge, and the software they need to improve employee experience and productivity in your companies. I'll be joined shortly by one of our customers in a fireside chat to showcase their success in using Slack to enable an employee experience that is both reflective of their culture and enables employees to be more productive and successful. But first, this question that you all have about me. My favorite emojis inside of Slack. These are Slack's, company Slack, custom emojis. The first one is a yay fox, which I liberally use whenever we celebrate a big or small win. And the second one I usually use when I DM somebody I don't know or have never DM'd before. It's a corgi wave. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, I want to start by sharing a bit more about what we think the employee experience is, why it's important, and how we internally at Slack shape this in the early stages of our employee journeys. So first, what does that mean? Employee experience, in our opinion, encompass these important components. Recruiting, making sure that we hire more effectively with top-notch candidate experience. Onboarding, which is ramping up our new hires to get to productivity faster. Internal communications, aligning and empowering our teams with knowledge while reducing meeting times. And employee engagement, which is retaining and growing our people over time, leading to better company performance. Based on a recent Gallup study, we know that there are clear advantages to positive employee experiences. This should matter to any company of any size. We know that talent is typically the biggest investment that you make in your companies, so we have to take an active role to make sure that our employees are highly engaged and productive. And if we create that experience for our employees, the business results speaks for themselves, with higher revenue and profits, as well as lower employee turnovers. But the same survey also shows us that most employees are still not engaged. Only a third say they are enthusiastic or committed to their work. Why is that? It's really clear that the status quo is no longer working. The status quo being emails, lots of meetings, operating in a tops-down hierarchy, so on and so forth. And that's because today's work involves a lot more distributed teams, more mobile work, more collaboration with other departments, and all using more systems and applications. In today's more complex work environments, employees experience all of these things: bottlenecks, friction, and fragmentation. These dynamics have lots of impact on the way your employees work with each other and inside your company, which of course in turn has a big impact on how people feel about working for your company. We as people team and people team members own many of these processes and tools that shape the employee experience. So we have a pretty big role to play to influence and improve that experience for our candidates and our employees. At Slack, you've heard by now, our mission is to make people's working lives simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. And we on the Slack people team have been using Slack to help overcome these challenges and create better employee experiences. We are using Slack to improve communication with each other, cross-functionally, to establish better workflows, and using third-party integrations to bring the relevant data and process into Slack. In summary, we get the right people connected to the right information at the right time to streamline work. I'm going to show you some examples of what I'm talking about. And because it sets the tone for the longer-term outlook of the employee lifecycle, for the first few minutes, I'm going to talk about the two initial areas that shape the employee experiences at organizations, starting with recruiting. Based on our own user research, we know that Slack delivers high value in this area. Our users report more streamlined recruiting efforts, faster time to hire, and better coordination amongst recruiting stakeholders. All of these leading to more efficient recruiting and better candidate experiences. I'm going to go in detail about how we actually do this. Recruiters, hiring managers, and stakeholders can use Slack to ensure that they source and screen the most relevant top talent by setting up 2 private channels for every open role. One for hiring, where the recruiting team and hiring managers can narrow in on the specific specs of a candidate, like what skills, how many years of experience, companies you want to target, etc. Another channel for interviewing, where recruiters, hiring managers, and interviewers can get aligned on who is going to assess which competencies and what questions to ask. This allows all the relevant information and conversations to be organized in one place. And where this is especially powerful is, say, a recruiter needs to be moved off of a rec because of workload or vacation. All you need to do to bring another recruiter into the process is to add that person to the channel, and she'll have all the context immediately. There is no more trying to remember which emails to have to forward to her or have a meeting to bring that person up to speed. Similarly, if an interviewer needs to back out of an interview last minute, all you have to do is add that replacement interviewer into the channel, and everything she needs to know about the candidate, the areas she needs to interview for, the questions to ask is all right there in channel. Of course, Slack works everywhere you are, not just on the laptop. So if you're on the road for work and a candidate is coming into the office for an interview, you can easily prep the interviewers using your mobile device, just the same as if you were in the office. After the interview, you can quickly poll the group in channel and remind them to submit formal feedback in the ATS system. Let's say after a few rounds of interviews, you decide to make an offer to a candidate. Mandy, in this case, you want to make her an offer. So you would start an offer channel with the relevant stakeholders and approvers to talk about an offer package. And it's actually quite surprising how fast you can get an offer package created and approved inside of an offer channel in Slack within minutes. And personally, I've never seen as many offers go out to a candidate within 24 hours of an interview as I have since using Slack for recruiting. And of course, with the flexibility of our platform, you can integrate all the tools, any tools you need to track approval process or approvals right in channel. So these are just a couple of quick tips of how to use Slack to create a more efficient and better recruiting process, all with a better candidate experience too. After someone accepts, let's get them onboarded. So it makes complete sense that if a new employee is onboarded well, she should be more productive faster and more engaged and committed to the company. Based on IDC research, organizations that use Slack have seen pretty significant uptick in these 2 areas. And I'd like to give you a closer look at how we use Slack to onboard our own new hires, which actually begins 2 weeks before they start. 2 weeks before they start, we add them to a Welcome to Slack team, which is different from our corporate Slack team and is dedicated only to new hires. All new hires are added to this temporary team 2 weeks before their start date, and in that team, there are channels with people operations and IT members who are ready to help the new hires to sort of get up to speed. During this time, they can fiddle around with Slack, the product, and have a chance to interact with other new hires in their same class, even before day 1. They can also use this opportunity to preview onboarding materials and get to know some of the more logistical questions that they might have, get them answered ahead of time. On day 1 of our 3-day onboarding program, they're added to our corporate Slack team. We create a new hire channel for every new hire cohort when they join so that they can share resources, knowledge, and see who wants to go for lunch, collaborate, and practice their Slack skills in that channel with each other. As part of our new hire onboarding program, we teach Slack 101 and Slack 102 courses to help them learn how to use Slack at Slack. And this channel is where they practice so everyone in the new hire class learn how to use Slack together. It's actually a really great way to make everyone feel inclusive and help them get up to speed at the same time. And because we don't send any emails internally, this channel is also where all the information is shared from HR, IT, or other business support groups. In addition, we have a Yay channel that managers can introduce their new hires and include fun facts about their new hires. It's a really good practice to make all new hires feel welcome and included on day one. We use third parties to streamline our onboarding. Automated messages are sent to new hires via the donut bot in Slack, including things like the information and tasks that they need to complete beginning of the day and the end of the day. So new hires will know what they should expect before the day begins, and they should have learned, and they know what they should have learned and accomplished by the end of the day. Separately, Donut also has a feature that randomly pairs two people up for a chat once a month or whatever frequency you choose, so that new hires get opportunities to meet others at the company. And the participants don't even have to be in the same department or the same location. Besides using Slack and Donut to get new hires onboarded successfully, Slack also has many integrations with HRIS solutions and tools like Ultimate Software, the upcoming Workday app, and other similar applications in the directory. These integrations make it really easy and fast for employees to complete lightweight, frequent tasks right inside of Slack. They include looking up information about coworkers, making PTO requests, and viewing pay and benefit details. Here in this example I'm showing you, this is Ultimate Software. They can enable Slack users to provide real-time feedback to colleagues right in Slack. They never have to leave Slack to do that. Every one of these interactions saves a bit of time for the employee versus having to go out of Slack, log into the relevant HR system, take action in those systems, and then coming back into Slack. Donut and Ultimate Software are just two of our sponsors here, so I definitely recommend you going downstairs and checking out their booth and learn more. So now that I've covered the initial employee experiences, let's switch gears to how employee communicates and engage over time. And to do this, I have a little bit of help from one of our customers. I'm pleased to introduce you all to Kaitlin Norris, Employee Experience Specialist at Shopify. Kaitlin, please come join me on stage. You're welcome.
Thank you.
When I say fireside chat, I mean fireside chat. So let's start with some, okay, I have been instructed to use this. Is this better? Okay.
Yeah.
Rapid fire Q&A first. Where are you from?
I am from Toronto, Canada.
Canada. Favorite San Francisco restaurant?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't think I've actually had a bad meal in all the times I've come to San Francisco, so I'm not even sure. But one place I go to without fail every time I'm here is this little kind of coffee shop breakfast cafe called Farm Table. They have a really good egg and croissant sandwich. So.
No Farm Table fans here, more Toronto fans. I get that. Last one, favorite Slack emoji?
Oh, okay. So we have a lot of Slack emojis at Shopify. I think I have 3 Slack emojis of my own face, which is weird. But I think my favorite ones are just classics, like the wave. I always use the wave, and thumbs up.
Nice. All right. Can you tell us a bit about Shopify and what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Shopify is a multi-channel commerce platform. Our headquarters is in Ottawa, Canada. We've been around for about 15 years, and we have just over 4,000 employees across 8 offices and about 2,000 dispersed and remote employees. We've been using Slack since late of 2014, company-wide. And my team is the Culture and Employee Experience team. We use Slack every day as our team is dispersed, and we have a couple remote people as well. And we use it for things, all sorts of different communication things, as well as launching our recent Culture Amp Pulse survey.
Great. So it sounds like a ton of global growth in addition to Slack usage growth. What sort of challenges does your team face on that entire growth journey?
Yeah, so global growth has definitely been a huge challenge for us recently. culture and employee experience-wise, just understanding the difference of subcultures between the different countries that we now have employees in has been really huge, as well as kind of relearning how to use Slack. In 2014, we were mostly co-located in Eastern Standard Time, and now we have employees in 15 time zones. So understanding, you can't always ping people because it might be 2 a.m. or if someone's posting something at 9 a.m. in India, everyone in Canada is asleep. So how we use Slack has definitely changed a little bit as well. And as the name of my team indicates, culture and employee experience, we take that very seriously at Shopify. So just understanding all of these nuances as we grow globally.
Yeah, culture is super important. How about you tell us a little more about how your employees are engaging to build out your collective culture?
For sure. So 3 great examples that I can think of are actually in our day-to-day language. So the first one is thrive on change, which is actually one of our culture values and has been for a while. So if we want our growth to continue at Shopify, we believe that we really need to all thrive on change and see the benefits of change, and really be able to thrive in an environment that's constantly changing. The next one I would say is that we say a lot is feedback is a gift, and in brackets, not a grenade. We believe that the best feedback is direct. Ideal feedback is given in a challenging but clear and caring way. And the last one, I think, is be your authentic self. So we want everyone to really believe that they belong at Shopify. We believe that people can do their best work when they really feel part of a team, they feel like they have a purpose, and that they can show up as their most genuine, authentic self.
Yeah, I love that last one a lot. When I talk to people inside and outside the company, I have a similar way of talking about it, which is I feel like Slack makes personality productive, and this is really another great way to say that.
Yeah.
So can we dive deeper into the Thrive on Change?
Yeah, for sure. So Thrive on Change has been actually, funnily enough, one of our only constant culture values since starting the company. And it actually is a really great story in a couple years ago, actually, in San Francisco. We had our external conference for partners called Unite. And it was day 2 of the conference. Day 1 went really well. Everyone was really happy. Day 2, we show up. The team is ready to go. Our executive team is all on site. We have all our speakers. Everyone's raring to go. And the power is out at the venue. San Francisco-wide power outage. So we weren't even allowed in the building. And so it was similar to here. Everyone was kind of standing outside. Luckily, it was a sunny, warm day. But all the team had to really think on their toes and create a new experience. And we ended up setting up chairs. They brought all the chairs out. They had outdoor talks. There was actually a Caesar bar, which is like a Canadian Bloody Mary. And everyone ended up having a really good day, and we got great feedback. And so our CEO was on site for all of this. And when he returned to Canada, he really thought, that was just a great example of how people can take this kind of chaotic incident and really thrive in this area and create something good out of it. And so he wanted to start doing these things internally more often. And the first one that he decided to do is implement no meeting Wednesdays. So he did this by emailing the whole team a couple days, I think it was a Monday, and all of our Google Calendar meetings were totally wiped on Wednesday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's frightening.
So it was a bit chaotic, but the email was basically saying, we have a very meeting-heavy culture, and we need more time to think creatively and focus on things like professional development, personal development, and just think outside the box a little. And that's really hard when you're constantly going meeting to meeting to meeting. So now we have no meeting Wednesday. And for a while, it was pretty good. Everyone was, no meetings. But slowly they crept back in because Wednesday was the only day to have meetings. Of course.
Great time to set up a meeting.
Yeah, miraculously, everyone's calendars was wide open. So let's do it on Wednesday. So one employee set up this bot called Chaos Monkey. And so Chaos Monkey will ping you on Thursday if you have a meeting on Wednesday, which I did a couple weeks in a row. I actually got one today because all of my Slack sessions from yesterday went into my Google Calendar. So I was like, no, I'm allowed. These aren't meetings. Yeah, so this chaos monkey will ping you and let you know that you had a meeting and you shouldn't have a meeting on a Wednesday. So
That's genius.
yeah.
We're going to need one at Slack every day. So in the absence of meetings, how do you keep in touch with teammates on Wednesdays?
Through Slack and our team channels.
I knew that was coming. So you mentioned feedback is a gift as your second example. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely taken a lot of effort to shift people's mentality into that and really understanding how they can learn from feedback. And we've recently moved to a new tool called Fellow, and having the tool sit within Slack has actually been really, really helpful for us because we use Slack so regularly. And so now we have Fellow, and as you can see here, in the morning, Fellow will ping you to let you know if you have a meeting coming up. So this is my example where I'm meeting with my lead. So I can add talking points. She can add talking points. I'm able to view them. So before our one-on-one, I can go in and see sort of like, oh, this is what she wants to talk about today. This is what I would like to bring up. And it just makes your meeting that much more productive. Another thing that you can do with Fellow is ask for direct feedback from another employee. So in this case here as well, I'm asking my lead for a stop, start, continue. And then this feedback comes back in Slack, but then it's also stored in the platform as well. So you can always view it and search it, which is great. You can also ask for feedback about specific meetings. So you can say, you know, was this meeting productive? Should it have been shorter? Should we not have had it on a Wednesday? All those kind of questions.
Right. Yeah, we recently launched something similar too at Slack called Lattice, which if you were at the keynote this morning, you heard it's one of our partners. They basically allow us to do real-time feedback and praises within Slack, so an employee never has to leave Slack to do those things. But the beauty of it is all of that feedback is captured inside of Lattice, the tool. And if you're a manager or if you're in HR, you can always go to the tool and run analytics and understand things that are going on there. So super great.
Yeah.
Your third example for increasing employee engagement, which is be your authentic self. You mentioned to me that there's this really interesting channel that was created. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of my favorite Slack channels. So at Shopify, we have any employee can create a channel, so you public or private, and this creates some pretty unique situations. So in this case, one of our employees is an animal lover. That's her authentic self, and she created this channel called Ageimals. And on every Friday, she posts a picture of an animal, and we all go into the channel and vote on how old we think this animal is. And it also accompanies with a fun fact. So in this case, it's parrots are the only bird that eat with their feet.
What?
They name their children, and they follow them for life. So we're learning, and we're also having fun. So this channel has now grown. There's over 400 people in it. It's always really fun because everyone just kind of starts to guess at how old the animal is, you know, like, oh, this animal looks very wise, or their feathers are very fresh, or something like that. And so in this case, we're guessing the age of this parrot. And I actually haven't told Robby the age, so I'm going to make him guess right now.
You have to understand, we've been at this for a month, and I'm trying to get it out of her. She would not tell me until this moment. So I'm actually quite excited.
Okay, yeah, we're going to find out. So your options are 20, 34, 68, or 87. And you can ask the audience.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to use a lifeline or something, whatever that's called. So who here thinks this parrot, lots of wrinkles under the eyes, by the way, is 20? Can you raise your hand? 20. Looks like 2 or 3.
Okay.
34. Okay, like a fifth of the room. 68. Oh my, lots of people. 87. What? Does anybody know what the average life expectancy of a parrot might be? Okay, I'm going to go with 68.
Okay.
68.
Well, this parrot is actually 87 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. Another fun fact we learned about parrots in this edition of Ageimals was that Winston Churchill had a parrot that outlived him. And then everyone was like, well, how old was he when he got the parrot? That would be helpful information. But no one knew that. So.
Amazing. My life is complete. So, by the way, this is a really clever use of the Poly app, the irony of all. But it's really a great way to keep people connected and learn some stuff. So thank you for sharing these examples with us today. I have to ask, what is next for your team in your efforts to continue to build out positive experiences for your employees?
So we actually, as I mentioned earlier, we do our pulse survey annually. So in our most recent survey, 42% of our employees said that Slack distractions are a real barrier for them to be able to do their best work. So one thing we've noticed really over the past year is that we implemented Slack and everyone was using it so well. We never had a problem with buy-in from employees, but they were almost using it too much. So now it's becoming a bit of a distraction for people. So what we're trying to do is kind of socialize and familiarize some of the best practices for Slack. So things like using the do not disturb functionality, using status emojis to kind of update if you're in a meeting or if you're not available on Slack, keeping night and weekend pings to a minimum, knowing when to communicate in person versus Slack, avoiding like the whistle pings and Slack bombing that can be so distracting when you just get like 5 emojis and it's really, or 5 notifications and it's just one sentence.
What's a whistle ping?
Whistle ping is just when if I'm like, Robby, hey, and then nothing.
Don't do that.
It's so annoying. And you come back an hour later and you're like, what? What do you want? And it takes 4 days to have the conversation because so, sending your whole message up front so people can actually respond in a timely fashion. And so we're trying to socialize these rules a bit more and featuring them in things like our weekly town halls so that people are seeing them not just through onboarding or something like that.
Great. Mm-hmm. Sounds like your people are in great hands between your team and support from the Slack CSM team, so looking good. So before we open up to audience questions and send you off to lunch, let's recap. Takeaway for today's session. As HR professionals, we all have the opportunity to shape how our employees interact with our companies, their teammates, and the technologies that they need to do their jobs. And in Slack, we hope to help you do this through channels, third-party applications, and of course, our support teams. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. So with that, we will open it up for audience questions. And I don't think we're using the Slido app, so there's a mic going around if you like.
I have a question.
Hi.
Hi. Not a plant at all. After talking to a bunch of people, this question came up pretty frequently in my time at Frontiers. And the question is, how do you handle inappropriate posts or monitoring conversations when they enter into questionable topics?
Great question. So kind of a number of ways. Whenever we build out any sort of communications plan or anything, my team, the employee experience team, is really focused on understanding our employee populations. So we'll flag, potentially this city, this team, this location might have a bit more of an issue with this change. And then we'll monitor the channel to make sure that someone is ready to respond if need be. We also, sometimes these things just crop up as well, a bit more organically. So we will communicate in an internal comms channel to just kind of talk about who will respond and then respond. But one big thing around this is we've always believed that these conversations are going to happen regardless. So if they're happening in Slack, it actually allows us as a talent team to see the feedback and take it and action on it instead of it happening, over drinks or, outside of the workplace in a place where we're not able to actually receive that feedback. So sometimes it can be a bit challenging to see and to know how to deal with it properly, but I truly think that seeing it is a lot better than not, and Slack's really helped us with that. What about you?
Totally, +1 to that. We, just to add on to that, and inside of Slack, we also work with our internal comms team. By the way, there's a question there, if you can hand her the mic. Who works with leadership to triage some of these questions that might be a little more spicy. So what we do is we'll get into a channel as a team and talk about what the question was intended to be, who is going to respond, what is the respond, and when you're going to respond, so that we don't have multiple people working on that specific answer. We just have someone that you know is going to answer by this time, and the message is consistent, it aligns with company culture, company values, and it has worked really well. And so that's something I would suggest for anybody out there too.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Krista. I'm curious if you guys have any perspective, either for yourself at Shopify or at Slack or through customer service, about institutions that are working in a union environment or a partially union environment. This comes up for us because of the questions about inappropriate behavior and how it gets reported differently if you're in a union shop. So just curious if you guys have any experience.
I personally don't have any experience with unions. Do you?
We also do not at Slack anyway. How about we follow up with you afterwards? My sort of initial reaction would be a couple things. One is we have flexible sort of retention history, permissions, and things like that. So you can set it any way your team needs it to be compliant. But the other might be more of a cultural aspect, which I frankly don't have any great insights into. But happy to follow up after.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about like the specific challenges, so we can chat for sure.
Okay.
Hi. So I think employee experience is really important, but sometimes executives may not see it that way. It can be sometimes seen as, a frivolous kind of expense or, labor suck. So what are some common metrics that you guys use, especially in relation to Slack, to justify that stuff and to prove business results?
Yeah, great question. And it's something we still struggle with at Shopify to this day. We do a couple annual pulse surveys to get, actually biannual now, but to kind of measure these things and really understand where our employee engagement is at. So we have what we've defined as our culture metrics, which are things like belonging and engagement with the work that you're doing, and we basically measure these through various questions. So it's kind of a combination of that, as well as running things like we do a lot of employee experience research into our programs like onboarding and recruiting, and just really understanding a holistic view of what the employee experience is. So I don't think there's any like concrete metric that we've really used. We're very fortunate that our executive team has always really seen a lot of value in focusing on employee experience. But it's definitely a field that I think is emerging, and even downstairs there's a lot of apps that are talking about how you can measure these things through Slack, things like recognition tools and that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting to see, and it's a great field. I'm super excited to be part of it all.
Yeah, in addition to annual and quarterly employee pulse surveys, we also do them, and you can really get a good feel for how people are feeling in terms of belonging, but also productivity, or in our case, we ask questions like, do you understand Slack's vision and mission and objectives? Do you feel like you have the information to make good decisions for your company, et cetera? So there's a whole class of surveys and measures that you can use to better gauge that. There are other things that I would also suggest, which is regularly measure or ask people about meeting times or meeting effectiveness, and if using Slack has helped with that. We've actually have a lot of customers who have told us meeting times have been reduced, decisions have been made faster, I am more in the loop on things. And so there are these things that you can also try to measure and quantify.
Awesome. We have another question over here.
Here is...
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Other than the applications that you can procure from the marketplace, or the simple workflows that you can use through the tools announced yesterday, what advice do you have for building custom Slack applications if you don't have access to developers?
So definitely the workflow builder is the thing you should investigate. Before Workflow Builder came out, we used a version of it in HR to build a few things that simplified our workflows. So, for example, we have a people ops team. There's a couple of them, and they would constantly just get pings from our HR business partners as well as employees to do changes inside of Workday. I'm sure you all can relate to that. And so it's super hard to track who is going to do it, what exactly am I doing, and then sort of send a notification that it's done. And so we built this workflow that basically, if someone posts a change request in a channel, it will trigger a workflow. Someone on the people ops team will claim it, make the change, and click a few buttons, and then automatically lets the change requester know that it's been done and reflected. And so you save a few steps there, and when you have hundreds of changes in any given week, those steps, the time saved adds up quite a bit. But the thing you have to really understand is imagine what are the workflows that are being repeated today, whether it's what I just described or onboarding or recruiting or whatever, and figure out the steps, create the workflow, and then you'll actually find that they save you a ton of time. Hi.
Hi. Sorry, that was too close. So I was curious for more information, I guess, on what kind of training resources that you provide to your employees as far as educating them on best practices. What methods do you use, et cetera? I know you also touched base on the at Shopify on the town hall refresh, which I think is a really great idea as well. But I was just asking for more information about that.
Yeah, for sure. So that's something that, as I mentioned, my team is thinking about moving forward, and we're just doing a couple experiments with things like that. So currently there's a bit of a Slack education in our 3-day onboarding program. So everyone goes through and learns how to use Slack. However, we have a lot of tenured employees who've never done this. So this is kind of the goal with the town hall updates. I think we'll also we have internal dashboards in our offices that often display things like job postings and that kind of stuff. So we'll try to put them up there. They have our culture values on them too. And then we have it in our internal Wikipedia called the Vault. So there's like a Slack 101 page. So we're just kind of experimenting with how to get that out a bit more. And I'm actually working with our CSM on it too. So.
Yeah, just to add to that real quick. I said Slack 101 and Slack 102. So these are actually courses that any of our CSMs can help your companies design. But some of the specific things are the cultural belief of how we use Slack at Slack. So things like it's really a tool for users to pull information versus constantly pushing information out. So we really want our employees to be active in joining channels and also be active in leaving channels when they become irrelevant to you. And so we have a culture of it's okay to leave channel, it's okay to join channels, and most of our channels we try to default to public so that there's more transparency. So there's things like that. And then there's etiquettes like, hey, every feature that you build needs to be feature dash sort of a naming convention. So in the examples I showed you, interview channels are all starting with INTV dash candidate name. And so you can search and organize them in a much more clean way. So there's a lot of things like that. We have time for one more question.
I'd like to ask you about how do you open the employee information on the Slack, and how do you define such kind of rules on the Slack? Since I come from Japan, and we hesitate to open the employee HR information to all of the employee, and we don't have, so we are not a big fan of the LinkedIn in Japan. So I personally use that, but in nationwide, I don't think that all of the employee don't use that, since the changing the company is not common in Japan for the Japanese major lens company. So employees sometimes don't feel good to open their information, even if it's internal one. But the key for Slack, the HR information, is that to open those kind of information on the Slack. So I'd like to ask you, how do you open those kind of information on Slack, and how do you define it?
Yeah, I think it's company specific. So if your company is one that believes, hey, everyone should see everyone's title exactly as it is in your HRIS system, then you can connect those two systems, and any changes that happen in the HRIS automatically gets pushed to the Slack profile. Or you don't have to. If you're a company that say, hey, I can let anybody call themselves anything, then you just leave those profile fields flexible and let them edit. So there's a lot of flexibility there depending on your company. But I'd say Slack allows you to do any one of those things, and we don't force your company to go one way or another. So hopefully that's a benefit of using Slack. But we at Slack don't have a perspective of you must do this or you must do that. As you'll see in a lot of the features that we offer, there's a lot of flexibility in all of it. Okay, so with that, I am going to end this session. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Kaitlin, for joining me.
Amy?
Lunch is outside. Help yourself. Thank you.